Wikipedia, rather a pretentious title. Actually, it was one of my boys that came up with the title Wikipedia, and but its subtitle is a gazetteer of Scotch whisky distilleries, and so it looks at it looks at flavour really, and where flavour comes from. I'll be talking about this evening, and how the flavour, the way that they make whisky in each of these individual distilleries, both malt and grain distilleries, might influence the flavour, the outcome of at the end of the day.
The first thing I always say is thank you all for coming, and thank you to Glengarry for putting this on. It's really encouraging, to say the least, to see such a crowd here. 2 weeks ago, there was a quote which I've got at home in the Times of London, which said, quote, Scotland's leading whisky expert. So you've got the picture who's addressing you tonight, Charles Maclean. He is here to answer your questions, present a very good lineup of whiskies that we won't see again and don't have much of, but the whole idea was to present things that are liquid history. So, without further ado, Charles Maclean.
Thank you very much indeed. Great pleasure to be here, and I'm flattered by the number of people that have turned out to listen to me. Well, tonight's whiskies were selected to demonstrate a range of flavours, and flavours coming from the spirit, flavours coming from the wood, old whiskies. There's a finished whiskey there. There's a smoky whiskey. There's a couple of heavily sherried style whiskies. So it should hopefully, what it does, demonstrate the range of flavours available. The first thing you'd look at a tasting is the colour of the whiskey. It tells you the wood, the wood type that has been that has matured it, which is either American oak or European oak. This is the medal of the Master of the Quaich, which I'm inordinately proud. I was made a Master of the Quaich in October. Michael's wearing a miniature of that, which is the Keepers of the Quaich, and the Keepers of the Quaich is the, if you like, the highest honour that the industry can bestow. It's like the Chevalier de Testevin or the Commanderie de Bourgogne and so on. Here's a question for you. Right, a competition, but there's no prizes. The Glenfarclas distillery is one of only 3 malt whisky distilleries which is still in the hands of, effectively, its founding family. The interesting thing about Glenfarclas is that this is John Grant and George Grant, and they're all called John and George. The founder was John Grant, his son was George, and so on. And we're now the 6th generation, I think, isn't it? Yes, of John and George, John and George, John and George. It shows a distinct lack of imagination.
What did they call the next generation? George had a child.
Well, it'd be John, I imagine.
No, Kirsty. The value of whisky is absolute in regards to Scotch. You know, if you consider tonight we're going to be drinking a 1975, a 30-year-old whisky, and you look at the relative pricing, it is underpriced. So the value is always there. Any whisky, even a 12-year-old at $89, $95, 12 years of aging, you know, so the value is inbuilt. Whereas you take, not that I want to slag off other drinks, but if you take, gins, vodkas, da-di-da, I mean, they're all very good drinks, but they're made yesterday, drunk today.
Collectors, of course, always buy 3 when they're collecting whiskey, 1 for the collection, 1 to swap, and 1 to drink with friends. Very good idea. Always buy 3. Malt whiskey is increasing, continues to increase in every market. I can't think of one market where it's even flattened out. The fact that it beads at all, the fact that it foams like this and the foam lingers, tells you immediately, well, we know it because it tells you immediately that it's over 50% alcohol. So if you look at this and look at this one, do you see? Just fizz, away it goes, and that lingers. So again, you see on the beading test, you know that that is below 50% alcohol. It also, the length of time that the bead lingers tells us something about the likely texture, the mouthfeel of the whiskey. It's great fun. I mean, it's a bit of a, it's quite fun if a friend offers you a dram and you take the bottle and give it a vigorous shake. It always goes down well at parties.